And we're up. Hi everybody, welcome to Different from the Other Kids. This is our book launch for the Law and Disorder edition. This is really our first live segment. We've had other live things going on, but they were pre-taped. So welcome, very glad to have you here. Please welcome, Jacquie Tyas is here. She has been an outstanding contributor to this project from the very beginning. Let me take you back a little bit before we launch into a little conversation update with Jacquie. Let's go through what she has been able to contribute so far, the least of which, the most important and fantasticness of the fact that she came forward with a prologue, prelogue? Forward, if you will. A forward for the last book, and it is really excellent and very appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so we will go through just a little intro here into Jacquie's contribution to the first book, then we'll go into the second book, and then we'll just have a little conversation. So Jacquie, this is your first chapter. This chapter discusses the tragic loss of Jacquie's daughter and how this affected her and her family's life. Jacquie's story pulls on everyone's heartstrings while she reveals her motivations for helping others and gives an honest critique of society's lack of effort towards helping those with mental illness and addiction. Jacquie Tyas works as a mental health youth justice social worker. She is also the mother of 2 adult children. Her oldest son, who is now 27, has struggled with mental health issues for most of his life. His formal diagnosis was Tourette syndrome, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, learning disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder, and rage disorder. He struggled since his teens and continues to with serious addiction issues. Jacquie is a program supervisor at Turning Point Youth Services. I'll tell you when this was taped or when this was written, which is a multi-service accredited children's mental health center. They are located in Toronto's downtown core and provide a range of mental health, counseling, and support services to at-risk and vulnerable youth aged 12 to 24 years old and their families. So this was originally recorded, this interview that we did, Jacquie and I, before it went into the book, in August 2013. Wow. Yeah. So the next part of Jacquie coming forward, so this is my copy, which is really disgusting, of the first book, and this is her second chapter in that book. In this chapter, we continue our talk with Jacquie about the hardships she faced and continues to face with her son and his mental illness. Jacquie expresses many of the issues she encountered with different support systems and offers some great advice from a well-informed perspective. So that was Jacquie in the first book. And as we go to our third book, which is the book that we're working with today, which is the Law and Disorder edition. Jacquie, I'm not going to go into the foreword, but it is really well written. I would love for everyone to jump in and read that. Go online and get the Kindle version for 99 cents, and we'd be thrilled to send you a softcover book. Just send us a receipt would be great, if only because it gives us all the information, name, address, all of that stuff for us to get in touch with you. So we have the foreword by Jacquie, which is here, which is fantastic. And then she also contributed 2 more chapters, which is amazing. In this chapter of Different from the Other Kids, Law and Disorder edition, we welcome back Jacquie. She talks about her son's ongoing struggles with mental health and addiction issues and the tragic reality of supporting a loved one when the available resources are inadequate. Jacquie navigates the difficulties of trying to find a psychiatrist who can provide long-term monitoring of prescriptions for her own traumas and gives us insight into the disconnect between patients and service providers. So that is one of them. And there's one more, and that will keep everybody up to date here. This is called Youth Engagement, and this is chapter 2 of this book. In this chapter of Different from the Other Kids, Law and Disorder edition, Angela sits down with Jacquie once more as they discuss youth engagement and the power of giving young people a voice. Things as simple as giving input on meals and participating in group activities can have a major impact on how young people come to view themselves in the world they inhabit. So thank you, Jacquie. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Okay,
always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Isn't that nice? So nice. Okay, so I just threw out a couple questions here.
Okay.
And I don't need to do them in any particular order. Let's start with, I think what would be really important is to find out for other parents,
right?
What are the things that you think allow you to continue and cope with everything that you've had to cope with in your life? What are the kinds of things that you might do daily that would help you to get through? Because you've had a lot that you've gone through in your life, and any coping mechanisms would be great.
I would say what I've come to know, and it didn't sort of happen easily, through trial and error. I would say probably self-care.
In what respect?
Well, taking a break when it's possible, looking after your own emotional needs, recognizing when, which is really hard for parents, and myself included, when you are overwhelmed and stressed, that's the time you've got to remove yourself for a while, and you got to do something for yourself, whether that's going to be you're going for a walk, that you're going to do something fun, because as parents we feel very guilty when our children are struggling in crises, and it is, we're very torn. How can we enjoy something when our child is struggling so much? That was a long process for me to get to that point. I think that is one thing that I've come to learn, but it's, as I say, taken many years to come to that.
So when you remove yourself, like, would you read?
I might,
or would you watch what would
I
you
might
be
sit
doing
on the
during
television. I might sit and watch a marathon of Coronation Street
Yeah.
for a day.
Perfect.
In my pajamas, having tea.
Yeah.
And that'd do it for me. Now that might not do it for other parents, but something that removes me for a short time from the situation.
So when you go to the trailer,
Yeah.
Jacquie and her husband have a trailer which is in a beautiful part of Ontario, and when you go to the trailer, you were saying that that's a break for you, right? You don't actually even. I know I'm the same. I'll go through a complete day, never getting out of my pajamas.
Yeah.
And wandering around with my hair up like this.
Yes.
It's all good. Is that would be part of your coping as well?
Absolutely. It's the idea of not having any responsibilities whatsoever, and being removed from your world at large, whatever that is. And I think that, and being near nature, I really find that being near nature and just not having to think.
Yes.
And whatever helps you not think, and I'm not talking about numbing.
Right.
Because that's unhealthy, and that will bite you in the end.
Numbing
Like
alcohol.
Yes.
Pot.
Yes.
Other kinds of pharmaceutical drugs,
Right.
other kinds of street drugs, all those kinds of things.
Things that will alter your state.
And you know what, I always say, you pay me now or you pay me later, but you're always going to pay me. So if you're going to delay it, just know that you're delaying it if you're doing all that stuff.
And that's my point. That, yeah.
And I'm not judging anybody who does it either,
because it's a coping strategy.
It is what it is.
And people do what they need to do to survive, because it's not a normal situation. It's entirely stressful and filled with chaos, and I'm of the mind that people do what they need to do given what they have to, and what resources they have to cope.
Yeah.
And it's not for me necessarily, but I get it. And I think the other thing too, as parents, it's really, really important. Don't beat yourself up for it.
That's true.
And because we do.
Yeah. It's part of inherent in our nature.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, so another question I wanted to ask you is, I know that when we were going through this last book, there was a lot of challenging conversation because of the experience that you had in not being able to get your son the help that he needed at a young age, going through the school system. And yet, in this last terrorist attack, sorry, I hate that this is kind of heavy, but in the last terrorist attack, there was a grandmother who came forward, and in dealing with young children, she was saying, what she was trying to get them to concentrate on is, look, there's the helpers. So she was going through the videos with the child saying, look, there's another helper, there's somebody else helping. So I wanted to ask you, I know that was a terrible period of time when he was in school and you were going through all of that stuff, but were there helpers? Were there people that came forward to help you? Was there anybody at the school? Was there a teacher? Was there somebody that was a helper for you?
Initially, I won't name the board, but initially, when my son started really having challenges when he went to grade 1, I fortunately knew most of the teachers in that school and the principal. they had an early intervention program, and he had the most amazing teacher, and her name was Mrs. Faulkner, and I will never forget her. It's the first time that my child, that I could leave for those 3 years he was in that program, and it was a very small classroom, that the only call that I ever got from her was to tell me I might have forgotten to give him his meds that day, and could I drop it off at the school. Which I would soon find out would not be the case of most of his education and classroom settings. I never worried about anything. She did it all. We never had heavy conversations. She knew my child had special needs. She knew how to look after him. And anything she wanted me to know, she would send home in a communication book. And my kid was happy. And it was first time I'd had no responsibility whatsoever as far as being worried every day he went to school. Am I going to get the call?
Well, because you were inundated with calls. I remember when he was a certain age, I can't remember at what time it started, you were just constantly either on the phone or driving to or from the school to pick him up.
And I did have to give up my job.
Yes.
Because even the personal education assistants, they were not trained, and there has to be a willingness to work with the parent and to understand the complexity and what that looks like in day-to-day classroom settings, not just reading the case notes and the diagnosis, and you have to want to be creative and be willing to be creative with that child, not what the protocol of the Board of Education tells you they're supposed to do. And it didn't work. When we moved to another school board, it was horrific. And they did not, they'd gone to visit him prior to his transfer. They had all his psychological case notes. School social worker had been out to see him. You know, he had a full-time personal assistant, so he wouldn't be disruptive to others in the classroom. First day of school, he's ready to go. The principal calls me at 8:45 to tell me that there was no personal assistant for my son, and that he didn't know when they'd be getting one.
How long were you able to keep your job? That would not have lasted very long.
No, about 6 months.
Yeah.
Max.
You did well then, that's amazing. You were
Yeah.
able to last 6 months.
Yeah, and it was, this is a full-time job, and I cannot work.
Yeah.
And it was very, very challenging, and it was impossible to work. His needs were so complex and great, and I did not have the support of the director of education or the superintendents or the school board. And not that they didn't want to support him.
They didn't know how.
They didn't know how, but it was more, they didn't have the resources to provide what he really needed to thrive in a school environment. And that's really where the challenge was.
And it probably is even more so now. So
Right.
Sorry, Jack, we're going to wrap up for now. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Please, everybody, make sure that you get the Different from the Other Kids Law and Disorder Edition. Read Jackie's foreword. Read her chapters. If you have a child that is challenged even anywhere near where Jackie says, I think you're going to find this a very poignant set of interviews. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you enough, Jackie, for everything. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, guys, we'll be back soon.